The first part of the novel starts with the author describing the terrible health condition of 22 years old Massa, who now looks very lean and light like a grandmother, and how Massa's ailing health condition bothers his friend, Nii. Nii and Massa had been intimate friends before she took ill 2 years ago. The doctor had all said that she has a few days to live. He remembers his friend who advised him to visit a spiritualist at Gomo Dako. Then the neighbor knocks at the door to inquire of Massa's health condition to know how she is doing. Nii assures them that Massa is all right as he attends to them at the door, making sure that they don't get a full view of the room. Nii tells Massa of his friend's suggestion to visit a faith healer, which she agrees to. He takes the chamber pot out to empty in an open drain behind the building when a lot of thoughts run through his mind. First is the amount he owes the bank where he works. Then he heard a gunshot, which frightened him back to his room. He sits on a chair with his head on a table, then he slept. Chapter 2. It's 8 a.m. in Ilero, Nigeria. Mama Orojo and Ibuk were going to visit a man called Tom Monday to have a discussion from the Bible. On their way, they had to jump so many hurdles. They had to jump some bad spots, which Mama Orojo found difficult due to her weight. On their way to Tom Monday, Mama Orojo asked Ibuk why she had to buy the cross and laugh instead of kissing it like every other person on the day of their initiation into Amen Christi. Mama Ibuk said she felt like biting the cross and laughing on the day of their initiation into the Amen Christi, which made every other person to join her in laughing. Ibuk discloses her agreement with her husband not to preach to each other about religion, as her husband has said he will not join any church that is younger than him, and how her husband raged with anger the day she broke the agreement, telling telling him to join the church. As they keep pushing through the bad road, Ibuk asked Mama Rojo what she said the immigration officer they had seen earlier reminds her of. Mama Rojo said he reminds her of how she came to stay in Nigeria. Mama Rojo was born in Ghana. Her parents and grandparents had lived in Ghana until the government began to deport all the aliens, alleging that they are the ones causing the problems they are having in the country. Mama Orojo's parents died on their way to Nigeria. Her younger brother, who was too young to face the uncertainty that awaits them in the civil war ravaged Nigeria, was left in the care of a family friend and grandma who refused to join them. She says her early years in Nigeria were miserable. They arrived to Monday's house, who talks to them about his religious intolerant daughter, which he says was caused by her husband. Mama Orojo, who has studied the Bible in and out, brings out her Bible to initiate a discussion, which is what brought them to Tom Monday's house. Chapter 3. War has been declared against waywardness in Lagos. Every alien had to live in 5 days, and the person in charge of the operation is called Inspector Polio. Every corner of the city has been painted white with an inscription War Against Waywardness. Mr. Polio is happy about the policy and the new Nigeria he envisions without aliens. At this point, the author takes us back to Massa and Nii in Ghana. Massa is in good mood today as she teases Nii and have a playful discussion with him concerning their first meeting at a cocktail party to the plate of porridge they were going to have that Monday morning, including the condo Linda had given them. Linda is Nii's colleague. Chapter 4. Accra, Ghana, Tuesday, 10 a.m. After the revolution, and many aliens, including those in civil service and commerce, left the country, the young ones without experience took over power, and as a result, the economy began to fall. The price of cocoa fell in the international market. The country also experienced drought. In the bank where Nii works, He discusses with the manager about some projects presented by individuals seeking loans to develop them, but his manager dismisses them, claiming the first one, called Until, is not profit oriented, and the second one won't fly because of the bank policy. As they discuss, the lady typist Linda walks in and teases Nee of not talking to her since today. Linda brings the dailies, which talks about the issue of aliens in African countries, how aliens are being sent out of African countries. In Nigeria, even those with valid passports are sent out of the country. The bank manager said he would sack every alien from the bank if he had his way. Linda gives plantain and groundnut to Nee, which she puts in his drawer. Nee worried that another policy of sacking all foreigners like was done 15 years ago may be repeated. Despite being born in Ghana and having a Ghanaian name, his skin color, travel mark still betrays his origin. Nee goes through the dailies and saw that 3 million people had been deported from Nigeria, 2 million of which were Ghanaians. Linda invites Nee to his house, which Nee hastily agreed to. After work, Nee walks to a school where he does extra work of part-time teaching of GCE candidates. He arrives the school late and the headmaster wasn't pleased with him. He requested for a change of timetable to suit his late evening, which was granted. After that, he walks to the market to collect the weekly susu. Susu is a kind of thrift by the businessmen and women that are in the market. But he met the market scanty. A woman selling tapioca explained to him that is as a result of the drought which bedeviled the country and scarcity of petrol. He greeted a sick looking man who reiterated the decision of the government to frustrate its citizens by removing 50 cedis from circulation. And according to the man, his 50,000 cedis in 50 cedis denomination, which he stocked in his fridge, has been stolen. Another woman, Nee, inquired of is reported to have died because of the loss of 40,000 CDs, which were in the banned 50 CDs denominations. Chapter 6. Mama Orojo was stroking through the Bible when Tom Monday asked about telecom interlast contract that Mama Orojo executed, which she assured him that she constructed half of their junior staff quarters. He suggests getting her another contract from Interlas if she would not mind the condition of financing the contract before being paid. Mama Orojo accepted. Tom Monday was baffled that Mama Orojo could finance any project before being paid, and the thought of marrying her ran through his mind until Ebook brought his mind back to what they were discussing by tapping the table. They began discussing issues which Monday Tom did not agree with in most of them. At the end of the discussion, he promised to get the contract for Mama Orojo from Interlast Company. Chapter 7. As Nii trusts him, he passes through a space that served as a big and African United market called Cantonmanto Market. Different tribes in Africa did business in the market until part of it was gutted down by fire and the remaining part was pulled down later during the army regime because according to them it is an anathema and a shame to the society. Nii stood by an old wall which reminds him of the dilapidation caused by different revolutions. He moves to a spot near the Fizi the Face Lagoon to defecate, noticing some people were smoking marijuana behind him. He then moves to another spot where he saw a corpse. He quickly attended to the business that brought him there and walked home. Chapter 8. In the evening, Nee notices that two men were smoking in front of his room, which brought smoke into his room. But he couldn't tell them to leave because they had warned him not to talk to them whenever he sees them smoking there, else they will beat him up. They later left on their own. Massa was in pains, and after Nee had taken care of her, he slept. In his sleep, he talks about his blackness not being enough and the three stripes on his face. This worried Massa, who reassured him that that won't be an issue since there are still some um, tribes in Ghana that also have stripes on their faces. Massa was really worried about the breeding xenophobia in Ghana. Chapter 9, 8 p.m. in Lagos. In Lagos, Orojo, who has a lot of contracts due to the oil boom in Nigeria, is planning to travel to Ghana. She shops for the things she'll be needing from a store that is close to her house. The store owner, Idem, and her husband, Wachuk, who always quarreled over Wachuk's inability to provide for the family, despite leaving very early to work and returning late at night. They noticed Mama's intention to travel due to the things she bought from them. Idem, after selling to Ghanaian construction workers, also talked about how she had lost a lot of customers due to the indigenization policy in Nigeria. Mama Rojo lay in bed trying to recollect the place she lived in Ghana. Her mind also went to a soldier who duped her soon after the civil war in Nigeria and how he got shot for other offenses. She also remembered her second-hand clothing business that received a lot of patronage from eastern parts of Nigeria. Mama gets visitors from the church, and after having a meeting in her house about a second mission in Mile Zero, to which she was asked to do an estimate of the expenditure, afterwards they left, and Mama could not even see them off as she had fallen asleep. The next day, Mama visits her construction site. The name of her company, Madam Sansi Group of Companies, is written clearly on the chalk in the construction site. She meets the foreman who told her about some lazy and pilfering workers. She asked him to sack them. She works with some idle workers who informed him that their work is being stalled due to the irregularity of power supply. She promises to buy a standby generator when she comes back from her trip to Ghana. When power was restored, the workers started working again, and one of them got injured and was taken away for medical attention. Chapter 10. Nii sees a man heading to the sixth floor of the complex where the bank where Nii works is. The man collides with Linda and hurried to the stairs after apologizing to Linda. Linda followed suit. Nii invited Linda to join him in his meal. She reminds him of the invitation to her house. Now we are taken back to Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, 10:30 a.m. Mama met an accident traffic on her way to the airport. When she finally got to the airport just in time, a dubious man was offering to help her in the boarding process, but she refused by constantly speaking to the air hostess, who encouraged her to ignore the man. When it was time for Mama's bag to be checked, it was checked thoroughly, and the officer that did the checking pitied her for not traveling to Ghana with enough money to sustain her, without knowing that Mama already stocked a lot of money in the Bible. In Nee's office, the bank driver was being reprimanded by the manager for driving a car worth 200,000 cedis without a guard. Nin checked his account balance, which had little money in it. He is owing the bank 1,000 cedis and hopes to receive his leave allowance and remuneration from the school he does private teaching to help him push through his leave. He called on a waiting customer who applied for a loan which Nii dismisses on the basis of not having proper documentation. He interviewed four other clients and none of them received a positive answer. Those customers whose applications were rejected were very angry, but Nii couldn't help them and he moved to the manager's office. Linda reminds him of his invitation to her house, and he made it clear to her that he does not have enough money to afford leisure. Mama finally went on board to Ghana, and there was turbulence in the sky as the wings of the plane kept on fluttering, and the plane itself kept on losing momentum. She was very scared. There's this man that was sitting close to her that looked unperturbed, and they began to talk to each other. The man told him that what she's experiencing is a regular occurrence, and he convinced the man to buy a piece of jewelry from him, which he claims to be gold, and that he bought it at the price of 2,500 naira and was willing to sell to Momorojo at 2,000 naira. When they alighted, the man showed Momorojo where to change her naira to cedis. Mama Orojo welcomes herself home, but wondered if Ghana was really her home. Chapter 12. In the bank, a few people were standing behind the counter as the number of people that call at the bank has reduced. Some requesting that be allowed to close their bank accounts. The manager approves 10 loan applications while rejecting 10 loan applications. Linda hands over what she has typed to Nii, including a green folder which she said the manager would need. She reminds Nii of his invitation to her house. Nii agrees to oblige her invitation that day at 5:30 p.m. Two customers were in front of the counter. One is a church treasurer and the other person is a millionaire whose office is in the fifth floor of the same building where the bank is. The millionaire businessman came to make a withdrawal from his bank account but was not allowed to make the withdrawal because the revolutionary government had ordered that anybody who has more than 50,000 cedis in his account should not be allowed to make withdrawals except the person gets a clearance from the Attorney General's office after proving the money was made legitimately. He felt frustrated. He had up to a million cedis in his account but could not make a withdrawal. Nii made to go to the manager's office to talk about the anti project but was intercepted with a note that read that the assessment of the project has been stalled by the manager. Instead of pursuing the case, he stepped back to his table as the manager asked Aaron, one of the loan applicants, to follow him to his office. They are disembarked, that is Morojo and the man that was with her in the plane. The man pointed to two men wearing flowing gowns for a change of her money. She went to a corner, brings out some naira notes in 20 naira denominations and changed at the rate of 40 cedis to 1 naira and was given the sum of 40,000 cedis. She paid the man she bought the ring from and went to the taxi rank. Here, we're taken back to Nee's office. In Nee's office, Aaron's application was rejected by the manager. After he left the manager's office, he met Nii on his way out and recounted how the Ministry of Housing had first welcomed his idea, stating that to solve housing problem in the country, but later distanced itself from it. He assured Nii he would not give up. Chapter 14. The driver of the taxi that Mama boarded from the airport was quite friendly. She enjoyed the music that was playing in the car stereo. She brings out the ring that she bought in the plane and tries it on her finger. The driver was full of admiration for the ring and asked Mama to let him touch it. When he received it from Mama, he exclaimed, Abyssinia, meaning is no real good. Mama became very angry because she had been cheated. He asked the driver to take her to a police station and he agreed. The other passengers that were in the car did not complain. Back to Nee's office, Nii was seen talking to the millionaire who was not allowed to withdraw from his account. Since they are friends, the man asked Nii to help him find a way around it so he could withdraw some money from his account. But Nii maintained that it's not in his power to do that. There's nothing he could do about it. And the man left the bank, feeling frustrated. Mama Orojo reported the case to the police and was shown the pictures of those on the police wanted list. She was able to identify the one that duped her. The police officer warned her to be careful because she was the person that bargained for the ring. He also reveals that the man she identified is addressed as I put it to me and has been on their wanted list for some time. Mama leaves the station. Having asked the taxi driver to go, she sets out walking. She encountered dilapidated roads. She notices that one of the police officers that she met in the station is following her. When he caught up with her, he succeeded in convincing her that he can take her to a place she can buy real gold, which is at Bayama Building, McCullough Market. Bayama Building, McCullough Market. In the sixth floor of Bayama Building, Joe is seated in his office worrying about the difficulty his business is facing with security operatives in the mining site. He checks his account statement of a foreign bank and saw a balance of 40k £40,000. He also thought of how the government ban on hunting and exporting of parrots will affect his business of exporting diamonds, as they hide diamonds in parrots' belly, then export to foreign countries where they are killed and the diamonds retrieved. Soon, Mama and the corporal, that's the police officer, arrived by Yemen. Here we're taken back to Lagos, where on Monday, seen writing a love letter to Mama, declaring his intention to marry her. Joe explained that his life and success is comprised of chance and hard work. He started off as a sewing apprentice. When one of his friends, Kuku, came visiting, he told him about his job at the mines. Joe became interested in it but didn't join the mining business immediately. He did a lot of menial jobs in Accra, including hawking. Then he met Tally O, and they became friends. But due to the scarcity of products, the two of them go penniless sometimes. He discusses the mine's business with Tally O, who jumped at it. On the night of the adventure, they recorded success as they hauled a reasonable quantity of gold and diamond and easily sold them in the black market. Soon, Joe, having known the big people in the market, became independent. Joe was 30 years old and had impregnated two women during his early reckless life. Mama and the police officer arrived at Joe's office. Joe educated Mama on how to identify real gold after hearing from the policeman how Mama was swindled. Mama bought gold worth 50,000 cedis. Joe is happy that he is in money again, and Mama is happy that she bought it at a lower price. Naido, Joe's friend, comes and tells Joe about the government's plan and the Canada team that is to mine their gold, which enabled Joe to do a legitimate gold business. This made Joe very excited, and he was also careful not to divulge the secret. Joe takes them to a restaurant in the same building, which has a large number of customers. There he met an old friend who told him that the police came looking for I put it to me in his house. He also told him that he paid the sum of 5 million cedis to the government on tax that they claimed he owed, which didn't know how they arrived at it. Throughout their stay in the restaurant, Mama clung to her Bible, where she stored money and the gold she purchased. Now it's time to go. They couldn't see a taxi. The police officer suggested they used caravan. They walked until they met another of Joe's friends, who complained of spending over 5 hours to get through. He offered to take them to the airport. Chapter 17. Nii looks at the time. His leave begins today, and the relieving officer is already present. It is time for him to close. After exchanging pleasantries with the relieving officer and the manager, he leaves for the school where he does part-time teaching. He arrives at school late, and the students of 5B that he was supposed to teach were already streaming out of the class. One of them told him that they waited for a long time and he urged them to return to class, but they refused. When he entered the class, he saw on the board messages addressed to him, and the messages read, Nii, learn to use transport and save your legs. Fat head, fat clothes don't suit your thin body. Lateness is no teacher. One man talking Joe. As he made to leave, some students came in. He wiped the board. The topic for the day was taxation. The boys laughed at him, and he hit one of them on the head and bent to pick a leaf that fell from the book he hit the boy with. He tripped. He tripped over a chair, and one of the boys removed the chair, which caused him to fall flat on the floor. He leaves the class, and one of the students shouted his name, Moses. He ignored, but very angry. The headmaster came and reprimanded the students. Nii walked away. The headmaster went after him. When he leveled up with him, they discussed about Nii's allowance, which the headmaster agrees to pay. Now, we're taking back to Mama. Mama Orojo was thoroughly checked at the airport. The metal detector detected that Mama had some metals in her bag, but the officer couldn't find the metals because they were hidden in her Bible. And Mama convinced them that she does missionary jobs at times. Nii walks back home, collecting his allowance. On his way, he met armed soldiers and a crowd running after a girl who was later caught and punished for selling petrol above pump price. A woman grabbed Nee's hand and requested that he returns her susu money, else she would report him to the soldiers. But the crowd prevented him from getting to the soldiers, and as a result of the stampede, she fell. Chapter 18. Joe got to the residence of his office landlord and asked that he be given the other two offices to add to his. The landlord refuses, pointing out that the occupants of those offices are businessmen like him and also have a knowledge of applied science. Joe offers to pay upfront of 5 years, but the landlord still refused, pointing at the need for justice and fairness in one's deeds. Joe thanked him and left. Nii went to Linda's house, and Linda tried seducing him, also encouraged him to go with her to Nigeria to get a British passport, since he's a Nigerian and it's easier to get a British passport from Nigeria than in Ghana. Nii refused. As he tries to convince Nii, the coffee alarm rang and she was happy. Nii removed his clothes and shoes and put in a polythene bag he was holding, pretending to be mad. He rushed home. Getting home, he met a police officer and a man arguing in his house. The man was telling the police officer that his friend told him to look after his ailing wife before he gets home. When the police officer saw how sick Massa was, he left. The man thanked Nii and introduced himself as "I put it to me" as he left. Nii packed the things they will need for tomorrow's journey to the faith healer. So 19. Nii and Massa boarded a bus which is overloaded. On their way to the faith healer, their car bumped through many potholes, and after one of the big bumps, Massa died and was taken to the hospital close to the faith healer's place. Massa was confirmed dead and deposited in the hospital's mortuary. Nii goes to the faith healer's place, which has the bold inscription, "God is beyond science." He was made to confess his sins. He thought about what had just happened to Massa in tears. He was consoled and he went back to join the congregation after the confession. Chapter 20. In the evening, Mama was happy. She was hosting the 6 senior members of Amen Christi. They are planning to conduct a crusade and plant more churches. In the compound of a small house in Eba, a man is seen praying with talisman. After prayers, he meets his wife, who was also praying with a radio on. He switched it off and told her that prayers are said in a quiet environment. They talked with disdain about the notices and billboards of crusade all over the place and says they've got to stop them. Nii is at home feeling lonely and restless. He dreams about Nigeria while he sleeps. Chapter 21. Nii joined a group of illegal migrants going to Nigeria through the bushes. At a point, everyone was meant to change into a tattered clothes. Nii doesn't have such clothes, so he had to sew the one he was wearing. The border guards at Lome caught them and one of them was shot. They paid the soldiers 10 naira each before being allowed to enter Lome. Nii met Aaron, one of the loan applicants whose application was rejected due to the bank policy. He became his companion during the journey. After they left Lome border, they ran into the outskirts of the country. He was told a car would come and carry them to Benin. It is easier to travel to Nigeria through Benin. He looked around and didn't see Aaron and he assumed he had already escaped, since he wasn't the one that was shot. Now we're in part 2 of the novel. Part 2, Chapter 1. The trip from Lome to Benin was uneventful. Nii continues the journey with another young man, Ezla, whom he started the journey with. The name Ezla is the anglicized form of Ursula. Nii introduced himself and they recognized each other and how they met at the university. They approached a lorry station where they boarded bikes. Nee's bike man took off even before Nee had settled, after asking him to have his 5 naira fare at hand. On their way, Nee was robbed by the bike man, who told him that they still had 8 kilometers to cover before getting to Nigeria, only for Nee to realize they had already crossed Nigerian border. He approached a house, changed his clothes, knelt down, prayed and kissed the floor, only for him to see a custom officer standing over him. He asked Nee if he was a Ghanaian. Nee said he's a Nigerian, but the custom officer did not believe him as Nee bears Ghanaian name and could not speak any of the Nigerian indigenous languages. And Nee also speaks English fluently. The tribal mark on Nee's face could not save him because the custom officer knew that Ghanaians also have tribal marks. Since he was not able to convince the custom officer and others that he's a Nigerian, they took him and other immigrants, including Aaron, in a vehicle as they drove through Lagos. Nee asked them where they were taking them. He also found a chance to explain that he is a member of Orojo's family who were deported to Nigeria from Ghana for the same reason of being aliens. Palio, instead of taking them to prison, offers them a job in his house. He asks a woman at a well, that is Nee, asks a woman at a well if she knew about Orojo's family, but she says no. He tries severally to prove to them that he's a Nigerian, using his tribal mark as the only evidence, but Palio and his men do not believe him. He was further handed over to another younger man who would take care of him. Chapter 2. It was Harmattan period in Nigeria, which is usually associated with bush burning. Fire is burning the grasses around Miliki building, that is the building where the illegal migrants are staying. A flat in the building later caught the fire and the people in the building ran out for safety. Nee was the only one watching the scene from the hilltop near the white church where he had already prayed. Aaron was anxious about him, thinking he had left. He met a woman that resembles his mom. That is, Nee met a woman that resembles his mom, but some saw that the woman isn't his mom. Two men were returning from fetching water in Miliki water tap. One of the men introduced himself as Tom Monday. Nee talked to him. He tried so much to convince the man that he is a Nigerian, but the man did not believe him. He managed to find out from the man that Mama Orojo lives in Ijesha. Nee was assigned to wash and work with a pickup at 4 naira per day. His work is to offload and load drinks from shop to shop wherever the pickup goes. He agreed and said he would use the money to go to Ijesha to look for more Orojo. After the fourth trip from carrying empty bottles to the storehouse, he was tired. But he kept on working. He heard a little rustling from under the carton and accidentally dropped the carton, and the bottles came crashing except two. They went from shop to shop offloading drinks and loading empty bottles. Then he met two beautiful Ghanaian ladies, and one of them invited him to the hotel they were staying. In one of the markets, he saw a fat woman who reminds him of a woman he knew at McCullough Market, Accra. On their way back, the driver asked where he worked and why he's in Nigeria. He told him he is a bank executive in Ghana and is in Nigeria to look for his family. The driver reiterates that he doesn't look nor behave like a Nigerian, which will make it difficult for one to believe him. Chapter 3. Before leaving for Ghana, Mama Orojo sold the diamonds and gold she bought in Ghana to an old man in Shehu Hotel in Nigeria. Nee narrates his day's experience to Aaron. Aaron had fallen off the unfinished rafter while they were repairing it. Nee tells him that a woman who looks like him and bears his family name is said to live in Ijesha. Then they plan to visit Ijesha. Chapter 4. In Accra, Mama is lodged in Dan Hotel. She visited different beautiful sites in the hotel. She wrote down the things she intends to do the next day, which includes visiting the village in search of her brother. She called Joe's house but was told that he was in a meeting and would be available the next morning. Then she shifted her visit to Joe to be on the third day and decides to go to the village to look for her brother the next day. At the church office, a police officer who complained about the inadequate stationaries in the station suddenly mentions the name I put to me. He hands a notebook to Mama and demanded she write her name and the address in Ghana. The police looks at Mama curiously because she wrote Bayaman as her address. He talked to her about crimes and how people who seem innocent always end up being criminals. She leaves for Awisa, her village, the village where they lived in Ghana, in search of her brother. She met a lady who told her about the family of her brother's adopters and that the man who adopted him gave him, that is his brother, university education and that his brother works in a bank. She connects her with their queen mother, Bella Akuma, who happens to be Mama's old friend. Chapter 5. Nii and Aaron went to Lere to visit one of the Ghanaian girls he met in one of the warehouses while he worked as a loader. Aaron waited at the lobby while he goes in with the lady. The lady tried getting in bed with Nee, but Nee asked her to slow down and tell him about herself. She narrated how her father was killed by the army during the revolution in Ghana because they said he was a saboteur. Then their properties were also seized by the government and they had to escape to other countries to avoid being annihilated. Her mom, who is in Ivory Coast, is suffering. She told me that what she wants most in life is to get married. As they discussed, Nee kept calling her Massa instead of Masha or Mash. The fat hotel proprietor who sleeps with the lady to protect her from immigration is at the door. Nee leaves while the man enters. In Miliki's house, Aaron and Nee were queried and were accused of trying to escape. They were made to apologize, even though they did not want to apologize. Amen Christi Church converts people to Eba for a crusade. Some of the church members were in the living room of Pablo's wife, who has a year-old baby. Pablo's wife talks about her devotion to Christianity, her job as a bank executive, and her husband's job as an immigration officer. As they discuss a portion of the Bible, they perceive smoke and realize the building is on fire. Mama snatches Pablo's wife's baby and jumps through the window. Pablo's wife and the secretary could not make it out alive. Ibu's throat has been slithered. The chairman of Amen Christi, who was tied in a burning bus, was saved. The whole havoc was perpetrated by Sam. Mama helps in saving as many people as she could. A journalist commends Mama's bravery and promised to publish a story of her heroic deed. A soldier also commends Mama's bravery. Mama offers to take the child with her until a relative comes. The deadline for aliens to leave Nigeria has expired. People were seen moving to the border. Keke took Nee, the carpenter, and Aaron to the slum part of Lagos where they could hide from the immigration officers. He narrates how he had worked hard for 2 years in Nigeria and has been able to save money to buy himself a television and a radio set. He also narrates how his employer refused to pay him for 3 months, tore his passport, and asked him to leave without paying him simply because of the policy of evacuating aliens from Nigeria. When they got to the slum, people were seen at different spots protecting their properties. They watch a firing squad episode on television, and this brings chills on me. He hears the way the criminals are killed. At night, the slum catches fire and they escape. Keke takes them to a friend's place. They were captured and taken to Hajj camp close to the airport. Pablo and a Mencristi pastor were at Mama's place to thank her for the lives she saved, and the pastor made Mama to understand that they've changed their stance on Mama's marriage to Joe. In Hajj camp, Aliens who couldn't leave before the deadline were flooded there. Nii was dehydrated. He asked for water but couldn't get. An old man told him to stop asking for water because some of them had stayed there for 3 days without water nor food. Nee sees a dying cat, he picks it up, and somehow it assuages his thirst. The carpenter has seen a relative in the camp and has gone with him. Nee sees Linda and runs to meet her. She narrates how she was caught when she had been helped by a Nigerian to get a visa for London and had written to her husband that she would join him in 2 days. Nee sees the man who abandoned his family in Ghana and ran away with Susu money. He tells Nee he couldn't go back to Ghana out of shame and what the market people would do to him once they see him in Ghana. Another man approached Nee and asked for 10 kobo to use and buy water before he dies. He also wants Nee not to sleep at a corner in the camp because anyone who sleeps in the corner dies. As no one looked his way, he collapsed and died. Nee snatched a blade from a boy in the camp who was selling some wares there. He gets a sheet of paper from Linda, made a small cut on his finger, and used his blood to write on the sheet. He wrote, "We are all going to die here. We are all going to die here." The boy he snatched the blade from, without paying, reported him to the corporal. Hence, he did not succeed in stirring the people to a revolution. Moments later, a lady alleged that a corporal had raped her, and the whole camp surged towards the corporal who didn't understand what was happening, and before he realized what was happening, his gun had already been snatched from him by Nee. He was held down, and the people expected Nee to shoot him, but he didn't. He talked about the unity of Africa, the consequences of prejudice, and so on. When the crowd got tired of listening to him, they bounced on the words that are sold in the camp and made away with whatever they could. Nee, Aaron, and Linda ran into a cassava farm. As they sat under a tree to eat the cassava they had uprooted from the farm, they saw the dangling body of the man who ran away with the susu money. Linda decided to go to the airport, which was close to the camp. Nee and Aaron leave for Ijesha. Mama received Joe at the airport. On their way to Ijesha, Joe saw in the Ghanaian dailies that he was holding that I put it to me has been shot dead at the mines. The circumstances and the place that I put it to me is reported to have been shot coincides with the place and the circumstances that Tally O was shot. Joe does not want to believe that Tally O is the same person as I put it to me. Mama noted that is the same person that swindled her. After getting the direction to Ijesha from a drunken man staying beside an abandoned vehicle, Nee and Aaron set out to Ijesha. The distance is a very long one. They walked to Ijesha, sometimes having to hide in the bush to escape being caught by the immigration officers. Nee bought bread with part of the 2 naira that he got from Keke. They went to a construction site and asked for a job and were given a job. At night, they slept in the construction site. The next day, they continued working at the site, but unfortunately, the part of the building where Aaron was working collapsed. He rose from the rubble, injured, and they asked the foreman to pay them for a day and a half they had worked. But the foreman did not give them a dime, but rather threatened to call the immigration officers on them. At night, Indem's wife, who had seen them walk into the bush after buying something from her, told her husband that she saw armed robbers walk into the bush. She persuaded him to go after them as the head of the vigilante group. Then his husband reluctantly went into the bush with other vigilante members, including people living in the neighborhood. Aaron, who was suffering severe pains from the accident at the site, jumped out the window and died. Nii surrendered. Fortunately, Joe, who was with Mama, was able to recognize him and he got reunited with Mama. He wept over the death of Aaron. Aaron's body was deposited in the mortuary and Mama promised to give him a befitting burial. She regrets why such a talent that would have been useful in the building industry would be wasted. This is where the novel ends. I hope you enjoyed the story from the first episode to this last one. This is the fifth episode. I hope you've watched the first one, second, the third, and the fourth one before watching this one. If you haven't watched them, please endeavor to watch them. Thank you very much for watching and see you in my next video. And I'll be talking about the themes in this novel in another video. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you've not subscribed already. Click on the like button, it helps to promote our videos on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching and do not forget to share, please. Don't forget to share to your friends. Bye for now.